Well, that's been a fun adventure getting this stream going today. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. Uh, I'm John with Lio Support, and today we've got. Let's go around. Mike,
Mike,
introduce yourself.
here at the office.
Nope, we lost Mike. Mike is not here anymore with us. Oh, there he is. Come back.
I'm here. I'm good.
Perfect.
Awesome.
I
Let's redo that intro there, Mike, because you kind of skipped out for a second.
Well, I'm Mike, and I am here, and I am in the office here in Cheyenne. And it's been a nice, glorious day today.
Awesome. Any power outs lately? We've had a few there.
I don't know. I don't know if I've been in the office enough to experience any, because I have been out and about. So
That's good. That's good. How about you, Jackson?
Hi, I'm Jackson. I'm calling in from Utah. I work remotely, but it's a fun time. Sometimes I come in the office.
And we always appreciate when you make it to the office. It's a wonderful day, but glad we could support a remote environment. Love the hybrid nature of things. And then we've got our co-pilot, Artie.
Yep.
I should say flight engineer, because you got that new graphic going, don't you?
Yep.
Very cool. Well, tell us about yourself now that you got a face and a presence on the screen.
I am mostly a news person right now and branching out to other stuff. But yeah,
Awesome.
I'm just
Mostly news is mostly good.
running things behind the scenes here to make sure that this stream goes well.
Awesome. So if my picture blinks out, we know whose fault it is, right?
Yeah, yours.
It's Mike's.
mm,
It'll be the headset before the screen goes out. That's for sure.
Oh, you got to love Bluetooth. The technology is just one of those amazing pieces that it works, and then it doesn't, and then it does, and then it doesn't. Have you ever tried hooking up one headset to a computer and a phone at the same time? Yeah, new adventures in pain. Doesn't know which device to listen to at what time. It thinks it does, but oh my goodness, it doesn't. But I digress. Well, we got an interesting show today. We've got a little bit of topics, and I think we're gonna have some fun conversations. So we've got basic cybersecurity hygiene for the average person. That's going to be a fun topic. We've got Napster. It's got its 25-year anniversary, and then we've got Microsoft Recall. Wait, what did I just say?
Check
Sorry,
your windows.
dad joke. I'm good. Check Windows, and then NSA security recommendation. Um, it's interesting time when our national security agency tells us what we could and should do. So, without further ado, I did not mean that to rhyme, but hey, I'll run with it. But let's just dive right in. So, Napster turns 25.
Older than I
Jackson,
am.
how old are you?
I'm about to turn 21.
Yeah, don't discuss
So,
age on Twitch.
That's okay.
well, we just did, so hey, why not? Napster turns 25.
I remember hearing
So
about
that
Napster when I was a kid. I'm sure
I mean that
my dad was on it.
it started off as a fantastic idea that then quickly turned to massive amounts of piracy that then tried to go legit.
Right.
But yeah, it was a cool idea. Unfortunately, it was ahead of the times when it came to the recording industry. Music industry did not like the idea of Napster sharing stuff, or people just being able to download stuff for free. And I got to say very clearly, I don't agree with downloading stuff for free. Um, piracy is not okay, but a lot of people indulge in that. Uh,
That actually brings up
I don't know.
I remember doing some research about this, and I think it was Napster or it might have been one of the other file sharing platforms that actually inspired the band Radiohead. Are you any of you guys familiar with them? Radiohead.
Yep.
So if you remember their album In Rainbows, that came
hmm
out, and they actually, when they released it, they were kind of pioneers in this. They may have been the first ones, or if they weren't the first ones, they were one of the first ones. They released the album uh with the option to purchase it at any price you wanted. So you could value the album however you wanted. And that was their best-selling album as far as revenue
Hmm.
that they earned, which is interesting. And that was kind of what they did in reaction to Napster or these file sharing platforms. One of a few reasons that they decided to do that.
Yeah, and it was one of those interesting conversation pieces because before Napster, um, before real file sharing and that whole piracy movement, there was only one way to get your media. You go to the store and you plunk down $20 for a CD or dare I say a cassette. Um, there's
Or a buddy of yours, you
a
just have to
disc.
rip them, right?
Well, that became a thing, right? Because you could buy the song, or you could get the MP3, or um, the Napster version of it. But if you've got the CD, the uh, fair use and copy at the time was interpreted to say that you could copy a CD to MP3 for your own personal use. Um, and a lot of people went with that. So it got very hard to say MP3s are flat out illegal, and Napster is flat out illegal, which the way it was being used absolutely was. But yeah, you plunk down $20 for a CD full of a song or two that you like, and the rest of the disc was just kind of filler songs that the bands put together just to make a CD. So I saw Napster as a revolutionary tool to help society just kind of think about things different, ask the challenging question of is this media um, the media distribution channel, is it the right way to do things? I don't know. What do you think, Mike? You lived through this time with me.
I remember, you talk about how people got their music, and I remember way back as a younger kid that a lot of kids just made a mixtape based off of what was being played on the radio because they had a combo radio cassette recorder that would record what was coming off of the radio. And so for some
Mhm.
kids that just didn't have the money to afford, going out and buying the album, and besides that, there's a lot of kids, they don't wanna hear all the, 10 dozen songs that are on the album. They just wanna hear what the current hit song is on the radio. So they'll record it off the radio when it plays and make a mixtape, and it's got their favorite songs on it, and there you go. That's it. And I remember, right around that time, around Napster, because around that time, that's when the iPod and Apple Music, iTunes, and all that was starting to get big too. And iTunes was kind of fixing that, saying like, "Look, come to our store, buy the songs you want at like 99 cents." Like, who can turn down 99 cents? Everybody's got a buck in their pocket. You want the song, just buy the song for a buck if you don't want to buy the whole album. And then that way you can curate your own library and put on your iPod. And initially that was very, very open that once you had that music file download, you put on your iPod, you could save it to your computer. You had a couple different copies with the idea that, well, you're not going to be listening to it on your computer if you're listening to your iPod because maybe you're out jogging with your iPod, so you don't have your computer with you. And so it's kind of understood that you're the only one owning it and listening to it. But as we've seen since then, with digital rights management, they've really, cracked down on that, changed the way that works. And and try to make it a little more controlled for the music industry.
Well, that was Apple's claim to fame is you had to be within the iTunes app or on an iPod
Mhm.
to listen to music. But I mean, what a fantastic way of listening to society who's openly pirating music to say, hey, here's a legal way you can do it. You don't have to drop $20 to a CD.
Mhm.
In today's money, that's what, $32 a disc,
Mhm.
and you're buying it for one song, maybe two.
Mhm.
If I could go to Apple and just, like you say, plunk down $1, uh, they made a
Or
fortune when they
or you
pulled
could
that.
buy the whole album, the whole collection of songs in one fell swoop, maybe even at a discounted price because now you're not paying for physical media. It's just a
Hmm.
download. So they can justify, yeah, we can offer it at a reduced cost because we're not having to print the labels, we're not having to print the disc or the tape or whatever it is, and we can just let you download it at will, and it's in the cloud, and you can have it whenever you're logged in, and there you go. And, for some people who are diehard fans of their favorite band, maybe they do want the whole album because they wanna say, "Yeah, I collected it all. I've heard every song."
And I got friends that tried to get a hold of all the live versions of things.
Mhm.
It,
I don't
it
even
was such a.
know.
Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say I don't even know if that model. I'm sure you can still buy songs off of Apple, right, or iTunes. But I mean, now everything's just subscription based anyway. Because even then, when you would buy the songs, it was still easy to pirate those or share those because you had access to the MP3. And so they still did
Oh,
run into that problem. And
what was
like,
it?
go ahead.
I was thinking back to, you said subscription, and I think back to, hey, Mike, you remember Columbia Music?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly where you're going with this. For the buy the tapes or the
Oh,
CDs, pick 10, get them for $1, but then it's like you're in the subscription, you have to be in it perpetually. My sister did that, if I remember right, and then it's come to find out, yeah, okay, I spent my pennies on the single disc or whatever, but at some point, you're gonna have to pay up at some point. I never actually
there you
fully
go.
understood how it worked because I didn't personally get into it, but I think my sister was in it for a little bit.
From my
If,
understanding,
if
um,
Go ahead.
you would order the ones that you wanted, and then you were given ones that were on the subscription thing, the ones that they were trying to push out.
Mhm.
So, you might want to get,
It was
like Jackson
it was worse than
5,
that.
and then, like 3 weeks later you get a Pat Boone album in the mail. It's just like, why?
No, it was worse than that. You could buy from the catalog, but you pay their full retail price of $26 a disc.
Mhm.
And you can't get out without paying some ridiculous amount, like $400 or something like that. Just, you're
Mhm.
stuck in the subscription. If you add up all the discs that you could get in that just initial contract period, including the penny discs, you would actually come out ahead. But if you weren't paying attention, you're stuck in that subscription for years. And yeah, so Jackson, when you said we're getting to a subscription model, it's reminiscent of that. I just hope we don't go back to that kind of model where you're
Speaking
contractually obligated to keep spending money.
Yeah.
speaking of the subscription model, Spotify is raising their prices in the US by $1 on each format.
Are they?
I heard that.
Did they give you an Apple iTunes song for that dollar?
You know, and then I look at Amazon where on the streaming side for video and everything, there's people with their Prime membership that get access to a collection of things that it's free with Prime. There's also their freebie option where it's free to anybody, but it's of course with ads and everything. And some of the things that I watch on freebie are stuff that's really old. So it kind of makes me wonder could that be the same thing for music? Like it's really old music who really listens to this anymore? Let's just offer it for free, kind of thing. But
Well,
maybe with ads, I don't know.
on that, the Internet Archive
Hold,
is actually in some legal trouble right now because they had a project where they were taking a bunch of old 78s that,
Oh.
they're deteriorating. They're trying to preserve music from like 70, 80 years ago, but the record companies are still claiming copyright on it, so they're battling out in court right now.
Not the first time Internet Archive's been in legal hot water,
Mm.
I'm sure.
yeah, it's it. I think they've got a noble mission. I fully support them archiving everything that's been produced and keep a copy. I mean, it's like the Library of Congress. Like they've got a copy of every book. It's just a good thing. We should absolutely record our history, but copyright laws were originally intended to protect the artists, and nowadays they're weapons of large corporations, which is kind of protecting the artists, I guess, collectively. But if you ask the artists, are the corporations doing them justice? You'll get a different opinion from each artist. I don't want to speak ill of corporations doing their thing. They've got their place, but going after media that's 100 years old, that just seems weird. I mean, didn't Mickey Mouse just get
Steamboat Willie.
yeah?
Steamboat Willie did. And that was the big thing. What was it? Was it earlier this year? I think that happened, or late last year.
Late last year.
Late last year, that the copyright finally ran out on Steamboat Willie, and is kind of
Public
funny
domain.
because people just glossing over it kind of just read that as the copyright on Mickey Mouse. I don't know that Mickey Mouse per se, just that particular iteration of Mickey Mouse in Steamboat Willie. Steamboat Willie basically entered the public domain at that point. And I've kind of have followed copyright stuff for a while. I mentioned before that I worked at Novell as a janitor cleaning the security building, and one of the departments that I cleaned was their anti-piracy group. And so I've kind of always had a thing, like I've just been watching out for people who are pirates and pirating software, music, movies, whatever. And it's just something I've kind of followed. And then when I became a graphic designer, I had a special interest in it because, that's doing artwork, that's doing, like, as a photographer, maybe, you take a picture, I put the work into composing and creating that picture. I want it protected under copyright so that other people don't use my picture for their gain. And so I've always been very good to pay attention to stock photography licensing and just usage agreements and things like that to make sure that I'm not crossing a boundary. And when I hear something crosses into public domain, that's kind of a big deal, because it's like that means anybody can use it, kind of thing, and make their own derivative works off of it, and so on and so forth. And fortunately, I think that, I was kind of worried that people were going to go crazy with the Steamboat Willie thing. But from what I've seen, I think people have just had a lot of fun with it. If they've done anything with it at all, they've just had a lot of fun with it, and it's kind of a fad thing. And I don't know that it's that big of a deal anymore. But Disney's definitely a big enough corporation that they're going to protect as much of their intellectual property as they possibly can, so they can make the money, make fair money off of it.
Yeah, I would love to see the copyright on Cuphead run out and have a Cuphead version of Mickey, the Steamboat Mickey.
Mhm. Yeah.
Could be a lot of fun.
Now, you'll
I
have
think
to.
the novelty that he brought was just the fact that they were putting music and timing it together and just exploring the technology of the day. It was a revolutionary cartoon when it came out.
Hmm.
Now you look at it and it's like this is not novel. This isn't cool. This isn't something we can use to go forward. So I think in that sense, the nostalgia is going to protect the icon more than laws.
Right.
What were you saying, Jackson?
Yeah, I was gonna say because I mean, I don't understand copyright laws very well, and I don't know if anyone here is an expert, but from my understanding, you you can get a copyright for the author, and that copyright lasts the entire author's life, and then 70 years past their death, right? But for a corporation like Disney, can they still hold on to that old content that wasn't where the actual person, the author, may not be there still, but the corporation still exists? I don't know if someone has an answer to that.
Well, Disney,
That was kind of the
yeah,
yeah.
they kept on going back to the Congress to get the extension every time that, Mickey Mouse was going to fall out of copyright, they would go back and try to get it legislated to extend the copyright, which is why it's at something like 100 years
Right.
for I'd have to
And
check.
I kind of like that. 100 years seems like a good run for somebody to make the money off of an idea, right? I mean, you shouldn't be able to hold an idea for over a century to be unique, and everybody has to pay you royalties on it.
Right.
I mean, what was invented 100 years ago that we still have today that we should still owe the person who invented it the royalties for that thing?
Yeah, but then you get into patents,
Mhm.
trademarks. Those are all related, but they all I'm sure have their own specific set of rules and regulations that govern that. And yeah, it is an interesting thing that when copyright laws were originally crafted, I don't think anybody could have imagined the kind of world that we live in today where it's so easy to be able to make a duplicate of something that back then it would have taken actually a considerable amount of work. Like if I wanted to copy a book, well, that means I have to have an original book and I would have to go and typeset each page and print my own copies of the book. That's a lot of labor and time put into that.
We'll see
So,
why everybody didn't do that. That sounds
yeah,
easy.
yeah, and so I don't think they worry about it as much, but if we were to tell them like, "Hey, there's gonna come a time where all I have to do is point
Control
and
C,
click
Control V.
and and just like in literally 15 seconds, I've got an entire copy of a document that's 200 pages long, just like that." It would blow their mind, and they probably would rethink like, "Wait, we gotta really think about this now." I mean, what if I told you that within a half hour I could distribute 1,000,000 copies of a piece of work? That would
Well,
blow
and then
them
circle
away.
back to Napster.
Yeah.
Yeah, circling back to Napster, if you could download the entire, Sony BMG music library in 10 minutes, like there's a corporation worth billions of dollars sitting behind that download, and you download it in no time, basically. You put it on your computer and share it out to the world instead of just yourself.
Mhm.
I mean, no wonder they sued Napster. That's why I like. So you were talking subscriptions. Napster evolved into a subscription model. They tried to make it legal for people to use and enjoy music for a subscription fee. So, I mean, I'm gonna
It's
I'm gonna
still
remember that. I
around.
should look it up. Was it?
Napster's still around.
Yeah, no, the creator of it. I'm forgetting his name. What a pioneer towards giving us a streaming model, a subscription model. The idea that you can subscribe to an entire library of stuff, that's a great idea. Um, Netflix ran with that and made a fortune. Now everybody's got a streaming service. So, yeah, I mean, happy birthday, Napster. 25 years. That's impressive. I mean, well, let's put it a different way. How many other pirate tools made themselves legit?
Crunchyroll.
What's that, Artie?
Crunchyroll is basically the anime streaming service, the only one that's available right now that's out there. Sony bought Funimation and shut that down, so now Crunchyroll's the only outlet for a lot of the East Asian shows.
Yeah, and that opens up a whole other can of worms I just don't want to get into in this podcast. But
But they
if
started
you
out as a
bought,
pirate site.
if you bought a library from Funimation, you plunk down, I'll say $20 for a season of an anime. It got shut down, and you're out. So I think there's some new legislation that's got to come out. I think that you're right, Mike. The whole idea of being able to copy things instantly wasn't thought of when these laws were written. Um, the idea of ownership. If you read, subsection 29 of the terms and agreements on some of these things, you find out that you don't actually own the content you spent your money on. It can be revoked at whatever time. I don't think that's the spirit that people want to participate in the economy. I think if I spend $20 on a thing, I own that thing. That's just not how our laws are written.
People originally bought a a vinyl record, and that was their thing. I own this vinyl record that has Johnny Cash and whoever else, singing songs on it, and I can put it on my record player and listen to it whenever I want. So as we've moved through the different forms of media, it's, a vinyl record, it became a audio cassette, it became a CD, and now it's a digital file. And in a lot of people's minds, that digital file is no different than that vinyl record.
Yeah, it's well, we'll just have to see what society and our laws and everybody put together on this. We've got a completely different way of looking at the world now that we've got a supercomputer in our pocket.
Mhm.
If you look at the rendering power of your cell phone, it's more than what they use to animate Shrek. So it's amazing what technology we've got.
So, correction from something I said earlier. Napster, the original Napster is no longer around, but the name was purchased for use by another company. So it's the name that's still around, but so that was my mistake.
How does Napster operate now? They're the new Napster, I should say. Are they a music streaming service?
Music on demand service.
Mm.
I don't know anyone that uses it.
Well, I mean, when you buy a name like that, you get the pluses and the minuses. Isn't that a pirate tool? I'm not putting that on my computer kind of mentality. Or, hey, that's a cool name. Let's do that.
Yeah.
You buy the baggage along with the name.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of baggage, Microsoft, they've got they got a new tool to look back at your baggage. Microsoft Recall.
Baggage.
It's
They need to recall
oh,
recall.
You're not the
it's
first one to say that, Jackson. I've heard it on lots of other YouTube podcasts, and yeah,
I mean,
you heard it
recall.
here first, folks.
oh man, what a oh yeah, it's not my favorite idea they've had.
Yeah.
Somebody forgot to mute their notifications.
Probably.
That's all right. Well, so I like the idea of recall. I hate the implementation.
We just lost your
we
audio.
lost John.
I hate the implementation. That's the last thing we heard.
Artie, do you want to give us a quick rundown? What is recall then? While we're getting John back up.
So recall is basically a function that Windows 11 is going to have as part of the Copilot Plus design. And what it is essentially going to be doing is taking a screenshot of your computer every 3 seconds or whatever and saving it in an encrypted file that's also, compressed so that, what is it, like a week's worth of images will only take up a couple megs. So they're trying to focus on that. We almost heard you. But recall, it's going to be
There you are.
okay.
Awesome.
Recall is going to be it's going to be a feature that is turned on by default. So I haven't done the research in how to shut it off.
Well,
But
it's planned to be on by default right now.
yes,
I get a sense from the industry right now that there are zero security experts advising it be rolled out. Everybody's saying pump the brakes. This is a bad idea. I don't agree with that. I mean, it's a great idea, but a horrible implementation. Go ahead. Yeah.
the yeah, there are a bunch of security experts that have, since like the week and a half, 2 weeks that it's been announced and available for people to play with, many of them have found ways of utilizing this to access what they shouldn't be allowed to utilize extremely easily.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine somebody looking over your shoulder the whole time you're using your computer, and if someone has access to that, that's dangerous.
Well, let's talk about what it does do, right? It does a full capture of your screen every 3 seconds and saves that. It records all the text on your screen. It organizes it into a database, and it gives you an AI tool to go search that. So if I'm working on a research project, or trying to find a news article, or trying to solve a problem for a customer, and I remember it was like 5 weeks ago, I can actually open up my chat bot and say, "Hey, I helped this customer. It had to do with a monitor setting. Can you tell me more about it? I forgot what I was doing 5 weeks ago." And it will actually pull forward. Here's 17 things that you were doing with monitors. So I can see it being a very powerful tool that gives you that mnemonic device, so that you can remember things more accurately and more to the point. Use AI to search through your memory. But
It's got to be
if it's
secured.
if it's on my computer and it's encrypted, it's safe, right?
Wrong.
Only if your computer's not being used.
Only if your computer is off is your data safe in that situation.
Yeah.
If your computer's off and down, attached to an anchor at the bottom of the ocean, yeah, then it's safe.
Now, I
You're right.
heard that there are certain instances where it will ignore, like, for instance, perhaps during like password entry or something like that. Is that true? Or to what extent does it actually capture or not capture? I heard there were some instances where it won't capture. Or am I just
So the
imagining that?
the podcast I listened to from Steve Gibson, Security Now, highly recommend that to our viewers. Um, he dove into another analyst's review of it. He got an early access copy of the recall function. He dove in and figured out all the size and how the system works. Um, so not everything is safe. If you're using Edge in private browsing, it doesn't record. If you're using Chrome, it will record everything, both main browser and the private browsing. It will obfuscate passwords, but it's not 100% on that. You can tune it, is what they're saying. But I mean, how many different password entry boxes are there in HTML coding or JavaScript or .NET or any of those other languages that are out there? Not just today, but in the past 10 years, they're still in use in some legacy environments. It's going to be difficult to write forget my password command in AI and have it actually pay attention to that.
Well, and here's the thing, like, for instance, an HTML element may be initially marked as a password field and behave like a password field where it obfuscates the password being typed on the screen. But we all know, those of us who are web programmers know that sometimes we need to be able to look at that. Did I type that in right? So we click the little eyeball or reveal password link, and that changes that form element now to be a regular text box so that it can display clear text of your password. So does Recall know the difference of when that switch takes place? Probably not. You say you can fine
Well,
tune it. Maybe it will catch it every time. Maybe it won't, is what I'm hearing.
is it pulling it from the screen, or is it logging the keystrokes? I mean, we already have a component of Microsoft's thing is learning how you type to personalize information coming back. It's forget the name of that. I always turn it off when I install Windows. Um, but it characterizes how you type on your keyboard. So that data is being captured somewhere.
Mhm. My next question to that, though, is then, and from some of the videos and podcasts that I've seen on it, is that the worry is not for power technical users like ourselves. Like, we know enough that when we hear about these things, we say, okay, that's a feature I'm going to shut off because I don't want that. I understand the security implications that if I have this running and available, that it's now a potential target on my computer. So we will shut it off. The worry is for people who don't know any better. I mean, how many users are out there that they just go down to the Walmart or to the computer store, they buy a computer, they take it home, plug it in, and they just go through the setup that's presented in front of them, click all the buttons, and off they go. And if it's a default setting, do they really understand what that setting is doing? So then we take it from that point, and what are some of these people doing? Are some of these people medical professionals? Are some of these people bankers? Are they lawyers? Are they using these computers for healthcare, for legal things, for banking, and so now there's this set of data that has potential value to somebody because of what came across that screen or that stage in front of them. Oh,
Well,
somebody's bank account numbers. Oh, somebody's medical history. Oh, somebody's, legal documents.
and you can look at a system like this. Let's take it to that next step. So in an enterprise company, you could have a CEO ask the AI, what's the general mood of the company today, and it would go out and scan 10,000 computers and get the general mood of the company that day. That could be very
25% of your
powerful. That could
users
be
are
very helpful.
playing Minecraft, so you figure it out.
Yeah, how many employees are off task?
Yeah.
That's when it starts getting dark. Like, okay, how many employees are having medical issues? What is the most prevalent medical issue in our company this year? I mean, that's starts getting really gray line-ish, and our laws are just not ready for these questions.
65% of your employees are searching for how do I manage my stress at work?
It really is a thing.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
mean, that beyond the obvious challenges of it's recording your life and keeping it for you. It was what do we do with that data now that it's captured? That's the question. You know, for
Right.
us, we can enhance our lives. I've used ChatGPT to streamline some of my operations in my day-to-day life. But is it a good idea for our computer to do the thinking for us? I think that's the big question. There's a book I saw a while back. Is Google making us stupid? Because you just ask Google any question. So why do I need to remember what was the cause of the war of 1812? You know, do I care about that? Well, if Google knows it, the relevancy and the link between it doesn't matter anymore. So if I did something a month ago, do I need to remember it, or will my computer remember it?
the problem with the computer remembering the answer to a question like that is it might spit back that the War of 1812 started with the stock market crash of 1929.
With today's AI,
Yeah.
oh, I could totally believe that.
Oh dear.
were they facing some legal issues recently due to some inaccurate answers that they were giving in Google search and whatnot?
Oh, there was an embarrassing thing Google did. I don't know if they got legal actions, but the 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 one, and I don't want to ride this too hard because everybody else has. To get the cheese to stick to the pizza instead of fall off when you're eating hot pizza, you use glue.
Yep. So
And Google's AI would put that in the response on a pizza recipe of just put some non-toxic glue in the pizza sauce to help the cheese stick.
to answer your question there, Jackson, yes, these companies that have the predictive AI are facing some trouble over in the European Union because the
Hmm.
laws there have if you want something removed from the internet, you have to be able to have it removed from the internet. They actually have that right to protection over there.
Mhm.
So that also includes anything that is not factually correct. So if you ask this predictive AI about, this politician and the information that spits back is incorrect, there is currently no set uh, method to get that removed from the AI. So that's what they're facing as an issue.
Well, that brings up another question of if I want my information removed from these systems, what information do I have to provide for them to match in the data set to remove from the data set? If I like the color blue and I like pizza and I like Star Wars, the original 1970s version, I'm not alone. Millions of other people like blue and pizza and Star Wars. So I got to give them more information to say, hey, remove John from the database. Well, no, you can't just remove John from the database. Half the Johns in the world probably like pizza and Star Wars to some degree, at least. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting challenge because these large language models have been trained off of just absolute scrapes of the internet. They're just copy and pasting everything in Napster style, original Napster style.
Well, and how do you know that the mistake that AI made, for instance, I have Googled my name, Mike Lewis. You'll find if you Google my name, Mike Lewis, you will find out that I am not a very uniquely named individual. There are lots of Mike Lewis's out there. I think there was a race car driver. I think there's I think there's a famous author. I think there's a lawyer that I found. There's a whole plethora.
You're not gonna try and claim that fame?
No, absolutely not. I don't want it. I don't want any part of it. I want to be
You
me.
should
I'll
patent your
be
name,
me.
Mike, so nobody else can have it.
But here's the thing: if I ask AI and it gives me a response that is true for a Mike Lewis, but it's not me, Mike Lewis, then how does that law, like, well, that's not true about me. I want that information removed. Well, but it's only because the AI made a mistake and confused you with a different Mike Lewis. So it's not that we can remove that information because it is true about somebody else.
Hmm.
It just made a mistake, and so I can see how that would be a very complicated matter to have to overcome of, first of all, digging in and understanding, was the mistake a mistaken identity, or was the mistake legitimately like AI made up something about this person and it was false,
It'd be like separating the eggs and the flour after you bake the cake.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, these models are built. How do you pull glue as an ingredient in pizza out of the large language model so that it doesn't say that again? You then have to patch it by saying, if asked for pizza, don't offer glue. I wonder
Only
how.
for edible solutions, and then you have to define what edible solutions are.
Well, I mean, how
But
many kids
but how
have
many kids
tried
that sat in
glue?
the corner are eating the glue? It reminds me of, there was the meme of many years ago that, what was it? It was a representation of the different, I think it was the different browsers of the time, Chrome and Firefox and Safari, and then Internet Explorer was the kid sitting on the floor eating the paste.
Yeah, I gotta put in the disclaimer here. Glue is not a food product. Do not eat
Do
glue.
not eat glue.
Don't eat paste. Don't eat anything that makes things stick to other things in an inedible form. So
I'll tell you what, the guy
yeah,
who wrote that AI pulled that from is probably really offended now that the entire internet is making fun of him for his pizza choice. AI had to get it from somewhere.
Well,
it
not
pulled.
necessarily. The AIs do hallucinate. They will come up with stuff that sounds plausible just to get an answer out there.
Right.
Mhm.
I love searching for stuff and trying to make it hallucinate. It is one of my like, if I can get a chatbot to tell me something fictitious, I don't know. I love watching that happen.
I saw a reel where a guy was arguing with ChatGPT trying to get it to believe that 2 plus 2 equals 5. And I think he, after probably about 50 prompts, he finally got it to admit that 2 plus 2 equals 5 and say, no, sorry, I'm wrong. 2 plus 2 does not equal 4. And it's pretty comical, the entire discourse he had.
But
Yeah, it's
going back
kind of
to
amazing.
what Mike was talking about with the name, now, one of the reasons that they have put this law out there is, imagine your name wasn't so unique, or
Mhm.
wasn't so common. If you had a
Mhm.
unique name, but you also shared a name with, say, somebody who is in prison for something horrible that was released recently, and now that's going to affect you, especially if, the AI is saying you're the same person.
Mhm. Definitely. I
Yeah,
can.
imagine having the name Bob Smith and going through the airport TSA security.
Hmm.
You're almost guaranteed to match a Bob Smith out there that's done something that's not okay or got him on the watch list.
Right.
With apologies to all Bob Smiths out there.
Yes,
Yeah, now imagine you're
all the
you're
Bob Smiths who haven't got on the bad side of TSA.
Right.
and now imagine all of TSA is AI, then you're helpless.
Yeah, it's just an interesting dilemma that our laws weren't based on the speed at which information is flowing. We have no idea, no rational understanding of next year's rollout of AI even today. We've got self-driving cars. Who thought of that when we put in stoplights and street signs? It's just going to be. I'm excited to see where the world goes. I just hope that people look for solutions rather than complain about the situation that's at hand.
Right.
Unless we're talking about Microsoft's rollout of recall, happy to complain about that.
Which disclaimer on
It
that as well. I don't think we ever said it's not currently active, right? It is in a beta
No,
release
it's in pre-release,
that
pre-release.
you have to sign up for it. So most people aren't gonna have this on their laptop
and it's
unless
it's
you
not
have.
available to everybody that tries.
Right.
You got to have a rhyme or a reason to get into that program to then get a copy of
Right.
Right. But the Microsoft posed it as they were going to release it as a default on.
it.
Yeah. And yeah, the other podcast and anything I've watched as well, I think we've already mentioned this, is that there are people that do see the value in this. It can be a useful tool. It's the default setting. It's the seemingly lack of security consideration that's being applied at this point in time to such a feature. You know,
Well,
Especially with Microsoft saying that they are going to be security minded.
well,
yeah,
it's one of those. I don't want to take the side of Microsoft on this, but I'll devil's advocate. Microsoft has pre-released this. They haven't rolled it out to everybody. Maybe they rolled it out to see where those holes are, what they can do to patch it up so that it is secure.
Could be.
yeah,
I
I mean,
certainly don't think they're gonna give up on the idea. I don't think that's gonna happen.
no, it's not going to go away. But I would feel way, way better if Microsoft didn't have how many 0 days last month, and how many the month before, and how many the month before. Like there are so many bugs and holes in that security system as it stands, and now you're going to trust that to be a memory vault for you. Like,
mm,
if it was offline and only I had access to it, then it's not even useful because I can't search the internet. But if it was safe, it was secure, I would find good use in that.
mhm,
As
But
Gandalf once said, keep it
I
secret,
can
keep it safe.
I can boot a computer with a thumb drive and reset my password, which is supposed to be one of the most secure things in the computer, right?
mhm.
I can reset the password in 10 seconds. So why could I not crack through and get to the database and ask a question? Hey, I forgot my mother's maiden name. What was it again?
Mhm.
You don't even have to download the database. You poke a hole through to the AI engine itself and start asking it questions.
Yeah,
That'd be a very powerful botnet.
I won't be signing up for it anytime soon, that's for sure. I don't if I and in that scenario, if when I have needed to remember something that I worked on 3 weeks ago or whatever it is, I have enough avenues of being able to research that and figure that out on my own. Yes, it takes a little bit more time, but I would rather do that than risk the security of my identity and whatever else over that. I if I have to go back through a few emails, if I have to go backtrack through some documents and just refresh my brain on certain things, that's fine.
Hmm.
And it may just be a good solution is it has an on and off switch where you can say, all right, I'm about to go do some research. Research, that is the biggest application I see it being the most helpful. because you've got 1,000 tabs open, you're looking through a ton of things, and then you lose something. You're like, oh shoot, where was that information that I just looked at? Being able to turn that on for a session, saying, all right, I'm gonna go do this thing for a minute, then you turn it off, and then you have that little session saved, and you can go back to that. That's nice. I like that because it's a lot better than me bookmarking 1,000 tabs. Instead, I can just say, let me go back to that session where I was.
Hmm.
Mhm. Well, and just to take that kind of the next step, people have journals and stuff. How cool would it be to ask a memory repository of your parents? Tell me about something that happened when I was a kid. Tell me about something, or ask somebody influential like Oppenheimer. What
Mhm.
was your experience at the Manhattan Project? You know, what was your thought when you were talking with Neil Bohr on some specific thing? And it would pull up that information and give it to you. I mean, it could be really cool.
I can't remember if it was Zoom or Teams. I want to say it was Zoom. When I was in one of my classes last year, that I think it was Zoom. Someone's gonna have to like look this up and correct me if I'm wrong, but Zoom added a feature to the meeting so that basically an AI was listening and transcribing. I mean, there was already the transcription feature to transcribe what was spoken into a text file, but they added an AI on top of that so that it could take that text then and just be able to create summaries of like, "Hey, for this file." So and like, it was kinda turned on by default for one of our meetings. We just did it, and then I was hosting the meeting. We finished the meeting, and then all of a sudden it spit out this document. I kinda knew that that thing had been turned on, but I didn't know what was gonna show up, and I look at this document, and it's like, you know, Mike and John started their meeting by discussing da 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 and the ways that they could overcome blah 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 blah. And then it moves to some other paragraph where, Jane and Sarah talked about how they could enhance the website by blah 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 blah. I'm like, wow, like this is kind of fascinating. And then I looked and scrolled and like it's kind of long-winded, but it's still kind of fascinating that it did that. And it kind of that's what, you talking about the journals, that's what that reminded me of. And that in some sense, in small ways, some companies have already rolled out these kinds of features that they're monitoring, recording, and then spitting out, a compiled form of that data for further use if you so choose to use it.
I like
Yeah,
that idea of this the summary. That was something that I kind of learned how to do myself. Taking notes in any meeting, always writing down what's being discussed, so then I can go back and remember. Oh yeah, I need to go do that thing. To have AI to do that, that's handy.
Hmm.
it reminded me of a picture that one of my coworkers had a while back. It had a picture of somebody sitting there and says, "I just attended a 30-minute meeting that could have been replaced by an email."
Yep.
I mean, you could have a memorandum sent out from like top level administration in a company. Just have it build the bullet points and just email it out. Just be careful who you throw under the bus in the meeting, right?
Right. Go ahead, Artie. You're saying something? Oh.
2 minutes. Well, I'll tell you what. In the last 2 minutes, huh? All right, Jackson, you get 2 minutes.
I
Go.
get 2 minutes, 2 whole minutes.
Get the soapbox out.
It's the
Now it's
2 minute
90 seconds.
warning.
Say that again.
It's the 2 minute
90
warning.
seconds.
Oh, well,
So, what do you think that you grew up more knowing the AI and stuff? You're more you know engrossed in it. I'm sure you had a tablet when you were in young generation, young
yeah.
grades in school. Um, what do you think of this AI? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Just over.
I feel like every time something new comes out, I always come at it with saying, "Ooh, that's a bad thing. That's scary." Um, but after a good amount of time and a good amount of experimentation and implementation, it does become a good thing. Um, like I'm trying to think of a good example, but I think there's plenty of examples out there when something came out, everyone kind of took a step back and said, "Oh, that's a little scary," or "I'm not sure about that." And I think Recall's a good example. We're pretty wary of it right now, and I wouldn't turn it on if I mean I won't say if you put a gun to my head, I'd probably turn it on then. But I mean, uh, I'm never gonna turn that on as it is. But I'm sure within the next couple of years, it's gonna just be normal. Yeah, I go ask Recall what you were doing, and figure it out. Um, that's my take. So I still like to be wary of it. I know most of my generation isn't. They don't worry about it. They're not very security minded. I don't think compared to um, some of the other generations, or the older generations.
Mhm.
Just look at social media profiles and see which ones are marked as public and which ones are private. Your generation are typically worldwide public profiles. Anything they post, they don't care. The whole world needs to see it.
Right.
My generation, it's just, nope, I'm only sharing with my friends and close family members, and that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've totally
what's the phrase? I don't have anything to hide, but it doesn't mean I want to share it with you.
Right.
There's a reason I've got this avatar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
exactly,
and
and it's
I could see the possibility. We just had to figure out how to put the right guardrails on it so that we get the benefits without the pitfalls. But I think that's everything in technology, right? Just to kind of put a bow on this and wrap up the um, wrap up our discussion, guys. This has been a fantastic conversation. It's been exciting, and um, we dove in just a little bit past the surface level. Got to some interesting thoughts. So I'm going to say thank you to Mike, Artie, and Jackson for your time today. This has been a great show.
Thanks for having us.
yeah, glad to
And
be a
to all
part
our
of it as
viewers,
always.
yeah, to all our viewers, thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, feel free to add it to the comments, and we'll probably circle back next week and answer those. Until then, take it easy.